Well, it's now official. Saturday, 14th of October, is the date of the Voice referendum. Everyone who's enrolled to vote will have to register their vote. But we know that enrolment numbers among Aboriginal people is very low. Someone who's trying to improve that situation is Natasha Short, who's a very familiar figure with our Waringarri Media listeners. Natasha is the founder of Kimberley Geogars, or Birds, and the presenter of our Yarning Business program. We're going to get Natasha into our studio next week, when she's back in Kununurra, but given the date of the referendum has been announced, we thought it more timely to speak to her now on the phone from Broome. Thanks for speaking to us, Natasha.
Yeah, thanks, Donny. Thanks for having me. And it's good to have a yarn this afternoon.
Now tell us about this role of yours with the AEC.
Thanks, Donny. So my partnership with AEC, as you've just mentioned who they are, have come into a partnership with Kimberley Geogars for us to bring about a greater campaign or an education about the political system and how that operates. And so we're in the process of creating a number of different resources to help our countrymen, particularly in the Kimberley community, to understand this space a little bit better. So in the past, a lot of our people haven't particularly been engaged with it, don't know a lot about it. And so with the importance of the referendum coming up, they took the opportunity to engage with a local partner to try and create some information, some resources to get it out to communities so people can understand it.
So as I just mentioned, you're down there in the West Kimberley going out to communities. Now, can you just let us know some of the issues that some of these remote communities are facing in regards to access to information?
Yeah, Donny. So when I get out to community, people are asking me things like, what is a democracy? What does majority mean? So sometimes we assume people know things as simple as those words, but in reality, people don't. So what we're doing is we're breaking it down to in terms that people can understand, explaining it a little bit better. Sometimes we're creating things like, in fact, I have just created and released an animation. And that animation is 5 minutes, really breaking it down to clearly explain some elements of the political system, not all aspects, because it's actually quite, in-depth, can be quite complex, and it can be a lot of information for people to absorb. So we've tried to make it as simple as we possibly can. We've released that on Facebook, okay, Donny? We've sent that out on our MailChimp, and we're sending it out via posters and all sorts of means to try and get people to understand what it actually means, because some people out there are thoroughly confused with the upcoming referendum. And basically what the referendum is, and then you've just said it's now been stated for Saturday the 14th of October, is to change the Constitution. And Donny, the way that I've explained it to countrymen and community is that the Constitution is Australia's rule book. One, it's Australia's founding document. It's basically was created at Federation when Australia was created formally, officially in 1901. It had a constitution, Australia's rule book. Now, to change that constitution, it has to go to a vote. You've got to take it. It's called a referendum. It's got to go to the vote of the Australian people. There are 26 million people that live in Australia, Donny, and there's over 17 million that are eligible right now to vote because they're over the age of 18. So 17 million of the 26 million residents of Australia are eligible to vote. And so Australia cannot change its constitution without going to that vote, and furthermore, they need to get a majority, the greater number of people within a state voting yes, and they also need the majority of states. So there's 6 states in Australia. So the majority, of course, is 4. You have to get 4 of the 6 states to be majority. And when you have the majority of people in a state, within a state, and the majority of states, they call that a double majority. And if that happens, Australia changes its constitution. And the way that I'm explaining it to people is to say, think about your prescribed body corporations, your PBCs. Most of our countrymen here, because our Kimberley region is 99% native title determined. So people understand PBCs. They understand that they sit on boards and they're members of a native title group. But each of those PBCs have their own rule book. At a local level, they have their own rule book. And of course, the directors can change that rule book, but the members have an interest. They have a vested interest in that rule book because it's basically got to do with them. So they want to know also what's happening in their PBCs and their rule books. Well, the Constitution is Australia's rule book. And the Constitution of Australia cannot be changed without the majority of the members, the Australian citizens, being in agreement.
And the other issue that, you find a lot of people are getting confused with is what on the day when they go into the voting booths, what they're actually doing. Like what do they write? What do they tick? Yeah, a lot of people are a bit unsure about that too.
Yeah. So on the Saturday, the 14th of October, when you go to the polling booth, you're going to be given a piece of paper, and that piece of paper is going to simply have one question on there. I'll tell you what the question is that you're going to see on that day that you arrive for voting. You're going to see this question. A proposed law to alter the Constitution to recognise the First Peoples of Australia by establishing an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. Do you approve this proposed alteration? You're either going to write yes, Y-E-S, or no, N-O. That depends on you and how you feel about that proposed question that's being put to you. See, in Australia, it's mandatory for everybody over the age of 18 to vote. That's by law. But you've got to register to vote, number one. But then when you do go to vote, that's your personal right. That's your democratic right, because Australia is a democracy. So that is your democratic right as an Australian citizen of voting age, whereby you decide what you want to say, yes or no. My partnership, the Kimberley Jigas partnership that we have with the Australian Electoral Commission, is a neutral partnership. I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. I'm simply providing information and creating resources for countrymen and presenting it to them in such a way as that they can understand what's being asked of them. But still, if people are a bit confused, let them go and ask other friends, family, other people that they know in community, what do they know about it? What do they think about it? Because that's a discussion for people to be having themselves at their own kitchen table, so to speak.
So right now, do you feel like there's enough available information out there regarding this?
Probably there hasn't been a lot of information that's gone out there previously, and it takes time to create culturally appropriate and user-friendly resources for our countrymen. This is a really big conversation, but at the same time, we're trying to get people really motivated for this space. I think it's not an area that's been given a lot of priority by Aboriginal people. And so there's a big work to be done to create those resources, but we're onto it. We're slowly doing it piece by piece. But really, it's about people also wanting to learn a little bit more and finding out information and sort of not waiting to sort of always just be the recipient of resources. It's about being active, to be like, how can I find out more information? Because, in the past, our Aboriginal people haven't voted at all. They haven't voted, and there hasn't been that right, that democratic right. And so we're living in an era and a generation now where people are a lot more savvy to the political system, just broadly. And we've got that right to vote, to be able to say, this is the person that best represents my values and my views. This is the person that I would love to speak for me and my community or on my behalf. And if you don't vote, then you can't say I'm not happy with it because you didn't participate in it. At least if you've stated your case and you didn't get it over the line, you've taken the time to state your case. So it's really, really important that our people understand the decisions that you're making here, that you're voting, and the decisions that you're contributing to in regards to who will represent you, that's having a big impact. Because decisions that are made in Canberra have effect here in the Kimberley. So if you want something done, don't be a bystander. If you want to see some change or something different happen, go and use your voice. Voting is using your voice. That's what it is. Go and vote and have your say about how you would like things to happen.
There's a jump in Indigenous enrolment now. Currently it's 86.9% are enrolled to vote. That was a big jump up from 74.1% about 6 months ago. The work that's being done has piqued a lot of mob's interest. And do you feel like the work you mob been doing out in remote communities and stuff is kind of helping that, or is there still a lot more to be done?
Look, I think it's a move in the right direction. But what I also say, and what I've also advocated more broadly to the AEC, is that it's not just about getting people to enroll to vote, Donny. what we've got to be doing is educating people on the political system so that when they go there, their vote counts in the sense that they know what they're voting for. It's not a meaningless vote where you basically got no idea what's actually happening. You got no idea what these parties stand for. You got no idea what that person believes who is trying to be your representative for your region, you know? It's not just about enrolling to vote. It's about making an educated vote, being engaged in the system and being active in that space. And so what I had proposed to AEC within my partnership was not just to create resources, but to do educational forums, which is exactly what I'm about to launch into. So come the week of the 11th to the 15th of September, I'm across the Kimberleys doing forums. And each forum is just only a few hours worth of people's time. But it's where we get to talk about the referendum. We talk about enrollments. We talk about Parliament and how it works. And just having creating those friendly environments and situations where people can talk and openly ask questions or raise concerns or trying to get a deeper explanation for something that they just do not understand. So I'm going to be in Wyndham on Monday, the 11th of September. I'm going to be in Kununurra on the 12th of September. Derby, the 14th of September, and Broome on the 15th of September. And you'll see that on the Kimberley Birds Facebook page, that flyer and the details of when and where we're meeting. But so it's two, creating the resources, but then doing education forums so people feel like, no, this is what parties stand for. This is who best represents me. And it's an educated vote. It's not just a tick. See, some of our people are going and voting and it's invalid because they haven't done it correctly. And it's not a vote. It's a wasted vote because it doesn't count. You've got to do it properly. Otherwise, you haven't had your say.
So do you find there's always, yes, no, left, right, it just becomes a bit too heated and then it doesn't allow for meaningful conversations? People just shut down when one other person says, I'm going to be voting this and I'm going to be voting that. It doesn't allow for constructive conversation. Is that what you're trying to do with the AEC? Sit mob down and just a safe space, just talk it out, talk about their concerns, issues and what they're hopeful for. And do you find that'll have the most impact rather than just shoving flyers everywhere and.
Yeah, definitely. I really feel very strongly that as a democratic country, Australia does allow people the right to have their say. And I totally respect how people are going to vote in the upcoming referendum and in the future, general elections. So you have elections, you've got by-elections, and you've got referendums. So every time someone goes to vote, that's their democratic right, and they're entitled to that. For me, sometimes we can agree to disagree with other people. If they're not of the same political persuasion or party as us, or they don't have the same values, or they're not going to vote for the person we're going to vote for, I don't see any value or any need to be disrespectful in that conversation with one another. Every person is entitled to their vote, and I believe that Australia is a very successful democracy. Now, officially, Australia is only, as of this year, 122 years old because it was founded in 1901. It's 122 years old, but I regard Australia as a very successful democracy because one person gets one vote. Then the majority rules. So if you have 10 people and 6 say yes, then yes rules. Yes wins. Yes gets over the line. So to me, it's very important that every person is respected and valued for whatever, and they can have all sorts of reasons why they vote a certain way. That's their right to do that. And when you're educating yourself and when you're talking to when you're getting your information from a wide number of sources, right? And then you're making an informed decision, Donny. That's what it's all about. It's making an informed decision. You feel comfortable that you've researched, that you've read, that you've listened to, that you've spoken to numerous people, and you've been able to come to some conclusion that you feel comfortable with. And whatever that is, that's right for you. So Australia is a very successful democracy. Majority rules.
Do you find that access to credible information a bit hindered by social media sometimes?
Yes, it can be, confusing for people because unfortunately, for our people, English it could be a second language. The most important thing what I can say to people right now is that if you want to have a say in the upcoming referendum, You've got to enroll to vote now. You can't enroll to vote the day before the referendum's happening. You can't leave it that late. Now is the time. If you haven't already done it, even if you don't know if you're on the roll, on the electoral roll, go and check. Go to aec.gov.au and check if you're on the electoral roll, or if you need to be there. All you're going to need is a Medicare card, or something as simple as a driver's license or a Medicare card. That process of enrolling to vote is extremely straightforward and easy. It'll literally take you minutes. So if you feel strongly about this question that's being proposed, if you want to exercise your democratic right, you need to be on the roll. You need to do it now and be ready for Saturday the 14th of October.
So now with the date announced, what's the next steps? You said you're going to ramp up your information sessions. You're going to have producing more content available on social media and that?
Yep. Letting people know where the polling booths are going to be. And also, the Australian Electoral Commission right now is looking for workers. So during referendum time, they look for 100,000 people to be casual workers. So in the Kimberley, they'll be looking for community electoral participation officers, CPOs. And these are short-term workers to basically get all that information out there, to basically help to let people know what's going on, to be there on the polling day, to direct people and just to help them if they've got a question as they're standing, at the booth. They can't give them an answer which way to vote, but they can just give directions. So that if you're interested in having part-time work with the AEC, again, please make contact, because we'd love to point you in the right direction to have extra hands to help us during this really busy time now. Can I just say as well, Kimberley Birds has created an animation, which is Your Vote Counts. It's on our Facebook page. We would love it if you're on Facebook, please go to the Kimberley Birds Facebook page, find that animation, and please share it to your page. So our family and our friends, we've explained it in real clear terms, what's about to happen and how that process works. So we've explained it very clearly, and we think it'll be a great resource or a great tool to help you start a conversation with your family about what's coming up. But in the meantime, we're going to keep busy. We're going to be preparing for our educational forums throughout the Kimberley, and we would love it if you get in contact and we can talk more about where they're going to be and what we're going to be discussing. If you've got any interest, we'd love to have you come along, and please bring a friend. We'll supply some lunch, and it's just going to be a yarning session, very informal, just talking about all those questions that arise for people that they don't have the answers to. And, and if we don't have the answer, we're going to go and find the answer and bring it back to the people,
So overall, you see that there's a bit of a lack of mob getting involved in government, sort of local level, state level and federal level, just helping enact change within our community for us. At the moment, it's a bit lacking, right?
It's very lacking. And I think that comes down to the fact that a lot of our people, they're committed to so many other responsibilities, and they don't have the capacity, don't have the time to, sometimes join things like the local Shire Council, when it's actually really, really important, because as Aboriginal people, we're making up almost half of the Kimberley's population. There's 35,000 people living across the Kimberley. There's 4 shires. We're making up almost half of the population. In some places like, Halls Creek, they're probably making up 90%, 95% of the population. So, of course, if you've got a large percentage of Aboriginal people, you want to have representation. And unfortunately, that's not happening because people are not giving time and space to that because they've got too many other community responsibilities. Having said that, though, we do want to encourage people, if they feel that they feel strongly enough about a situation, they want to create some changes, they've got capacity in their life to commit, absolutely, go for that local shire. And we know that that's opening up today, right?
Here in the Shire of Wyndham East Kimberley, Kununurra, we've got nominations have just opened up for new councillors. So, I think Waringarri Media put out a post there on the Kununurra page urging any Indigenous mob, if you feel inclined, have a go, have a run as a councillor and try and help enact some change in the community here.
I can see there's 4 vacancies for councillors. 3 of them are for 4-year terms, and one of them is for a 2-year term. And there's also the presidency. that position is up for grabs as well. So there's actually 5 positions. So that to me tells me that'll be a brand new team almost coming in. That'll make up almost a brand new team that'll come in fresh, new ideas, out with the old, in with the new, and thinking about what can actually be changed at a local level to make things better for people in the Shire of Wyndham East Kimberley. Yeah, a lot of our mob, they haven't quite understood, I don't think, that if you wanna create some changes, politics is the way to do it. Mm. And people, other Aboriginal groups around Australia, they've probably come to some recognition or realization that that's the reality. And so you can't disengage from the political system because it's where things are happening. It's how you can get in there and influence policy and influence change and influence who is getting to be our spokesperson, because we want to pick ambassadors and people who represent us that actually know what they're doing, that actually are passionate about, creating positive changes in our community and making a positive difference. So when you go to vote for someone, pick the best candidate. Pick the best person that you feel has got enough of an understanding of the issues around the Kimberley region and what's, can be done to make the changes that need to be made, because we all know that things need to change. We all know that things aren't working, but what are the solutions? What are the solutions to those problems? Because it's easy to see the problem, but you need the person that has the intelligence to know what the answer is and who is motivated and an action taker to basically drive those changes. But I would like to also encourage the Shire to think innovatively about this space. And if they don't have an Aboriginal candidate to put up their hand to run for election, think about, and maybe they're already doing this, but think about the importance and ways of having that Aboriginal voice come into the work of the Shire, and so we can really get good outcomes for the people that live in that area and in those towns that, is encompassed by the Shire of East Kimberley, Wyndham, East Kimberley.
Definitely. Some major changes all around for the country and for the local shires. Natasha Short, Thank you very much for coming into Country Matters and having a yarn with us, and hopefully we've helped sort of demystify a bit of the process and a bit of the referendum talk that's going on. But
and thanks, Donny, and keep up the deadly work.
See ya.